Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Lush, private Northern California estate is site for Xi Biden meeting. Fire-damaged L.A. freeway aims to reopen within 5 weeks. House passes bill to avert shutdown, U.S. politics live. World in crisis, 5 key topics Biden and Xi will discuss in high-stakes meeting. Biden to press Xi to restore military talks after months of tension. Lush, private Northern California estate is site for Xi Biden meeting. Associated Press. U.S. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping are set to meet at Filoli, a secluded estate along Northern California's coastal range, which was built in 1917 as a private residence and later became a national trust for historic preservation site. The two leaders will meet on Wednesday at Filoli, a secluded estate along Northern California's coastal range. It was built in 1917 as a private residence and later became a national trust for historic preservation site. Fire-damaged L.A. freeway aims to reopen within 5 weeks. Wall Street Journal. California Governor Gavin Newsom has said that the section of Interstate 10 in Los Angeles will reopen in 3 to 5 weeks after being damaged by a fire last weekend. The governor said initial testing showed the I-10 needed repairs but didn't need to be demolished and rebuilt. The blaze is being investigated as arson, and no suspects have been identified. The reopening timeline means the I-10 would be closed for Thanksgiving traffic next week but open for the rest of the holiday season. The I-10 carries approximately 300,000 drivers per day. House passes bill to avert shutdown, U.S. politics live. The Guardian. House Democratic leadership have released a joint statement to support the resolution to avert the government shutdown. House Democrats have repeatedly articulated that any continuing resolution must be set at the fiscal year 2023 spending level, be devoid of harmful cuts and free of extreme right-wing policy riders. The continuing resolution before the House today meets that criteria and we will support it. Earlier, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he and the White House support the resolution. The full statement from House Democratic leaders here, new statement from Dem leadership backing CR, the continuing resolution before the House today meets that criteria and we will support it. World in crisis, 5 key topics Biden and Xi will discuss in high-stakes meeting. The Sydney Morning Herald. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet for face-to-face talks in San Francisco, in what is expected to be a high-stakes event aimed at stabilizing the rocky relationship between the two countries. The leaders are likely to discuss a range of issues, including re-establishing military communications, combating the fentanyl trade, the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, Taiwan, and technology exports. While the meeting won't end the standoff between the U.S. and China, it will be a sign that both leaders want to maintain ties despite lingering tensions. Biden to press Xi to restore military talks after months of tension. The Independent. U.S. President Joe Biden will hold a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss restoring communication between the U.S. Defense Department and the People's Liberation Army, PLA. The aim is to prevent isolated incidents from escalating to armed conflict between the two nuclear-armed countries. The meeting follows a 9-month breakdown in communication caused by the shooting down of a Chinese espionage balloon over the U.S. The two leaders will also discuss the issues in the bilateral relationship as well as regional and global matters. The White House's diplomatic language belies the true stakes of the meeting, the risk of violent conflict due to the lack of communication between the military establishments of the two countries. Biden has stressed the importance of resuming communication, saying that regular contact between the two militaries is vital in a crisis. The establishment of warm lines, similar to those between the U.S. and Russia, has been a State Department goal for several years. Wooing business leaders and avoiding conflict, what's on Xi's agenda as the Chinese leader heads to California? CNN. Chinese President Xi Jinping is making his first visit to the U.S. in 6 years. The trip comes as both leaders face domestic challenges and foreign policy challenges. There's less incentive for them to try to go after each other and a bit more incentive for them to stabilize their relationship, said Yun Sun, director of the China program at the Stimson Center think tank in Washington. Xi Jinping will be trying to bolster his country's troubled economy and push back on perceived U.S. efforts to suppress it. Beijing sees the U.S. push to diversify supply chains and its efforts to restrict China's access to advanced American technology as blatant actions to suppress its rise. Chinese officials have hit back with their own controls on natural materials used to make tech products. Xi Jinping is also likely to push U.S. President Biden for assurances on American policy toward Taiwan. The U.S. has ramped up support for Taiwan in recent years amid increasing aggression from China. Biden set for controversial human rights trade-off with China's Xi to tackle opioid drug crisis. Telegraph. U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to lift sanctions on a Chinese police unit that monitors Uyghurs in exchange for China cracking down on fentanyl exporters. The deal is set to be agreed between Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco. The U.S. has asked China to crack down on fentanyl exporters who send the drug to suppliers in Mexico, who then traffic it into the U.S. In return, China has asked for the U.S. to end sanctions on China's Forensic Police Institute, which has been accused of mass surveillance on Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. Why is San Francisco suddenly clean? Biden-Xi summit spurs city to action. Yahoo! A clean and safe San Francisco greets President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping as they meet for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, but locals wonder why the city could not have been regularly cleaned and maintained. City officials cleared homeless encampments and cleaned drug-ridden areas in preparation for the event. However, the cleaning efforts are temporary, and critics argue that the city's problems have been ignored for years. The city has struggled with the mental health and drug addiction crisis, the homeless population, and rampant property crime. Even with the city's effort to clean up, residents wonder why the city cannot maintain its appearance regularly. Others argue that the city's sudden improvements highlight the potential of a clean and safe San Francisco. Salesforce founder Mark Benioff said he would move his company's annual conference unless San Francisco restored cleanliness to the city. California Governor Gavin Newsom explained that the city was being cleaned up for the world leaders arriving for the event, but critics argue his actions are motivated by his ambition for the presidency. Mexican president to meet China's Xi at summit in San Francisco. Reuters. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday during an Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) summit in San Francisco. This will be their first meeting in person, and they are expected to discuss trade and ways to improve bilateral supply chains. Mexico's economic relations with the United States will be a major topic in López Obrador's meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. They will also discuss immigration, border security, and efforts to curb drug trafficking, including controlling the arrival of precursors used to make fentanyl. Additionally, López Obrador will hold a bilateral meeting with Canada, likely with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Biden says U.S. wants better ties to help China's economy. Bloomberg. President Joe Biden has expressed interest in helping China's struggling economy but not at the expense of American intellectual property. He stated that he wants to change the U.S.-China relationship for the better and believes that the Chinese people are currently in economic trouble. However, he emphasized that the U.S. cannot continue supporting positions that require trade secrets to be turned over when investing in China. Biden has been critical of China's economy in recent months, describing it as a ticking time bomb. The country's declining GDP and aging population have hindered its post-pandemic recovery, and its property sector is facing a crisis. Despite these challenges, bilateral trade between the U.S. and China remains significant. Biden stated that the U.S. is not seeking to decouple from China and hopes to establish a normal course of communication through talks. He also expressed a desire to reach an agreement on military-to-military communication, as China suspended diplomatic channels with the U.S. in protest over Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your Sixth Doctor here, reporting from the fascinating world of 6 degrees. Today, I bring you a medley of news from the sunny state of California, along with an exciting meeting between President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping. Let's dive right in. First, we have the prestigious Filoli estate playing host to the Biden-Xi meeting. This lush, private estate in Northern California will set the scene for an important discussion between the two leaders. Who knew a historic residence could be the backdrop for global diplomacy? It just goes to show that even the grandest of settings can be used for the most important conversations. Next, we have the fire-damaged L.A. freeway aiming to reopen within 5 weeks. Governor Gavin Newsom assures us that the repairs are underway, and the freeway will be ready for the holiday season. So, don't worry, folks, you can still hit the road for Thanksgiving. In the world of politics, the House has passed a bill to avert a government shutdown. House Democrats are making it clear that they want a continuing resolution that meets their criteria. It's good to see that they are on the same page and working to keep the government running smoothly. No shutdown drama here. Moving on to the high-stakes meeting between Biden and Xi, it seems they have a lot to discuss. From military communications and the fentanyl trade to conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, Taiwan, and technology exports, these two leaders have their work cut out for them. While this meeting won't magically solve all the issues between the US and China, it's a positive sign that both leaders want to maintain ties despite the tensions. Speaking of military communications, Biden is determined to restore talks between the U.S. Defense Department and China's People's Liberation Army. It's crucial to prevent any misunderstandings or escalations that could lead to armed conflict. Let's hope they can establish those warm lines and keep the peace. Now, let's talk about Xi Jinping's visit to the U.S. This trip comes at a crucial time for both leaders, with domestic and foreign policy challenges to address. It seems that there's less incentive for them to go after each other and more incentive to stabilize their relationship. After all, who doesn't want a stable relationship? It's like finding the perfect balance between sweet and sour in a dish. In a surprising turn of events, Biden is expected to lift sanctions on a Chinese police unit in exchange for China cracking down on fentanyl exporters. It's a trade-off that aims to tackle the opioid drug crisis. Let's hope this deal brings positive results and helps save lives. Now, let's take a moment to talk about San Francisco's sudden cleanliness. The city has undergone a major cleanup in preparation for the Biden-Xi summit. While it's great to see the city looking its best, many residents wonder why it couldn't have been regularly maintained. Maybe this event will inspire the city to keep up the good work and maintain its newfound cleanliness. Last but not least, Mexican President López Obrador will meet with Xi Jinping during the APEC summit. They'll discuss trade, supply chains, and even immigration. It's an opportunity for Mexico to strengthen its economic relations with both China and the United States. Talk about a power-packed meeting. So, there you have it, folks. A glimpse into the world of high-stakes meetings, diplomatic trade-offs, and a clean San Francisco. It's a whirlwind of events that keeps us on our toes. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of these news stories? Are you excited about the Biden-Xi meeting? Let's open the floor for discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.